Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Dailies, where we keep you updated with the happenings from the Nigerian front page of the paper. I am Sana Elisha Dasham. Do well to join us on Facebook and YouTube to drop your comment and your views concerning any of the story that is of interest to you. I will be doing the program alongside Rachel Tazi. Good
Good
morning,
morning,
Rachel.
Sally.
All right, let us run through the papers, and we will love to start with the Vanguard newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, the big story: ballooning operating cost. MCC stakeholders kick as telcos threaten service outage. The writer says telcos threaten to adopt load shedding formula in telecom services. NCC kick says subtle threat wrong approach to tariff hike campaign. Subscribers will hold regulator accountable if load shedding happens. This is a statement from NatComs. You can find all the details on page 30. In Dangote Refinery, why we reduce our stake to 7.2%. This is NNPCL giving reasons why. Details can be found on page 20. On year count to federal government neglect of youth ticking time bomb. Anglican Bishop flames federal government insensitive handling of the hashtag End Bad Governance protest. Nigeria will use climate change crisis to reshape economy. A statement from President Tinubu. Details can be found on page 27. Hunger protests attempted regime change coming from Council of State. 37 die in Oyo Ogun auto crashes. Details can be found on page 6. Time to tell ourselves truth, Sule tells northern governors concerning the protest. We have a column by Afe Babalola on page 22 and sports on page 36 saying Paris 2024 Olympics, Chukwu Mary J admonishes athletics to focus on Los Angeles 2028 and Brisbane 2032. And we have a picture where we can see Tinubu receiving Jonathan and Buhari. This happened in the presidential villa in Abuja yesterday, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, NUC identifies problems of Nigerian tertiary institution, lists poor funding and misgovernance and corruption as part of the problems that our Nigerian tertiary institutions are going through. Data found on page 28. On mass protests, no to unconstitutional change of government, with the Rider Council of State berate protesters asking for Tinubu's ouster, backs the president. More detail in the paper. Federal government to enroll 11,000 Almajiri children with the Rider FCT Smart School begins academic activities September. Tinubu signed bill to raise salaries of judicial officers by 300%. Tragedy in Oyo, multiple auto crash where we have about 16 died, 17 injured, flood kills 3, displaced many in Bauchi local government areas. Detail found on page 4. Reps grill WAEC officials over 5 billion naira expenditure on calculators. Detail found on page 27. Bishops demand review of economic policies. Says hunger triggered the hashtag End Bad Governance protest, which you can read on page 8. Court extend order restraining Abuja protesters to the MKO Stadium. You can find that on page 5. And we have the picture story where we can see the president. We can also see the Senate President and other governors during the Council of State meeting in Abuja yesterday, and that's all on Daily Sun newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, bank directors ask National Assembly to revisit 70% windfall tax. Afenifere condemns calls for military takeover. Trending: Nigeria may not meet 2030 target for SDGs. On numbers, WAEC withholds 215,267 candidates' results. For both trend and numbers, you can find details on page 2. High operating cost, forex insecurity threatens $70 billion ICT industry growth. Council of State rejects regime change through unconstitutional means. The big story on the paper: judges' orders get pay rise in likely judicial reforms. Tinubu okays 300% salary increase for judicial workers. Lawyers hail new pay package. Is a significant milestone, says Senator Lado. You can find details on page 4. Nigerian senator earns 1.1 million naira as monthly salary. This is an information revealed by the RMAFC. Federal government forfeits 188.37 billion naira to removal of duties on food. Catholic bishop demands harsh policies reversal. Tree die as flood ravages Bauchi communities. Details can be found on page 6. We have a picture story where we can see former President Buhari exchanging a handshake with present President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja yesterday. And that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, Economic Confidential names Aliko Dangote CEO of the year. You can find out on page 21. And on news, we have Netfund distance sale from fake foreign visa sponsorship. And on business, we have the NCL will support implement guidelines on tariff removal coming from the CG Adeyemi. As well on sport, conduct forensic probe of Team Nigerian's performance. You can read that detail as well in the paper. 3 million technical talent program to create 3 million jobs. This is coming from the Minister of Information, Idris. And the big story here, Council of State passes confidence vote in Tinubu. Gowon Abdulsalami, Jonathan Buhari Akpabio endorse president reforms. Describe the recent protests as attempted regime change. You can do well to read detail of that on the front page and on page 8. For unremitted 4.1 trillion naira, Senate sustained queries against NUPRC, NIS, police, and others with the rider revisit 2019 audit report detailing the paper. Tinubu to embark on 3-day visit to Equatorial Guinea today, which you can find on page 10. 16th year death, 17 injured in Ibadan auto crash, detail found on page 9. 7,000 children enrolled into non-formal schools in Northeast, detail found on page 6. And then here, coming from the National Veterinarian Association, Farm Alert partner disburses 20 million naira to young veterinarians. You can do well to find detail of that on page 20. And that's all in Blueprint newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Nigeria's large growing out-of-school population has huge consequences, a report from UNICEF. Police personnel to now write promotion exams. Council of State meeting, Obasanjo Babangida absent as Gowon Buhari Jonathan Abdulsalami pass vote of confidence in Tinubu. The big story on the paper, Constitution Review reps move to reduce cost of elections, push for conduct of all elections in one day. Finance Minister leads strategic meeting on NNPCL crude sales in Naira. On local government autonomy, Osun Assembly passes amendment bills. Alleged land grabbing, Ogun Assembly recommends suspension of traditional ruler. Each senator earns 1 million naira monthly, says RMAFC. Can read more on page 4. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway accident, 16 killed, 17 injured in Ibadan, 12 burned to death in Ogori. We have the writer saying 6 children lose parents. Ibadan residents lament incessant accidents at same spot. Call on federal government to speed up work on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and we have a picture story showing scenes from these accidents, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
I wish we could just move past this, but let's just talk a little concerning the accident because it's been on almost the papers we've covered so far.
Yes.
Talking about this accident, and we will record it. It seems as if for each time we go through the paper, at least for the first 2 to 3 days, we must record an accident happening,
Yes.
just like the residents they are lamenting in this same spot.
Yeah.
And I just can't help but ask the question, what really is the problem? I know you and I have tried our best to call the attention of the Federal Road Safety concerning what is happening on each of our express route. It's either we're having negligence coming from our drivers that are tired and are refusing to rest, or we're having cars that are not well checked, and then we have cars that have faulty brakes, and then before you realize it, you run into another vehicle, and then we see number of people dying each day. And I really think it's high time that the Federal Road Safety do something, especially concerning this accident we keep recording on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. I just can't help but wonder what really is the problem. Are we saying that this is coming from either because we're yet to get the number of either this was a commercial car or this was owned by a company. Regardless of it, looking at the scene, you know that this is a very, very ugly scene. 12 burned to death. So you could tell that, I mean, it was not a sight for anybody to want to
Of
see.
course
And
not.
I'm just hoping that we can just do something. And most of this, Rachel, is human error. It's
Of course.
deliberate attempt where you are supposed to rest, and as a driver, you are refusing to take that rest. Or it's either they're supposed to check and then we don't see it, or we have drunk drivers eventually driving, and then we always have this issue. So I'm just hoping something needs to be done about it. If there's a way we could just have all of these machines that can actually dictate this, and then the federal road safety, regardless of where they are, they can see it, and then something can just be done. We need to advance in the way we actually check this issue of accident, because it was surprising to notice that maybe there was no even federal road safety agent or official totally on that road when this whole thing happened. So I am hoping, I know this is one of the most difficult jobs, especially for the federal road safety. Anybody that will be very, very honest with you tell you that this is the most difficult job to do. But I just hope that if they have signed up for this job, let us see something being done. I mean, even the VIU, there should be a collaboration. Because I mean, we have come here to complain where the police will ask you for your paper, VIU will ask you for
Yeah.
paper, federal, everybody's asking for paper. Let us see them putting their energy in issue like this. Maybe to some extent, we'll be able to reduce the number of road accidents we have on a daily basis, especially on this road.
And Sele, the most alarming thing about these accidents is that road users and the residents in that area are saying is at the same spot.
Sports.
So whether we like it or not, of course, human error will be the number one factor behind these accidents. And then for the fact that it's at the same spot, one thing I know for sure is that when it comes to accidents being at the same spot, is that there is an error in the road construction around that area. The error could be creating a U-turn where there shouldn't be, or making a roundabout and is not constructed properly. And usually because I know we've seen such for example, in my area there was this U-turn that was made at a very wrong place. It was in between two junctions, so you don't know whether it's a T junction or is it just a U-turn, and there were no signs, there were no warning signs, there's no road signs there to warn people, no traffic light, nothing. It claimed about 2 lives, and then we had church members that were involved in very bad accidents that almost claimed their lives. This is not even an express road, to tell you that that road, that junction was poorly constructed. It was not supposed to be there, and the simple solution was just to change it and make it no longer a place for U-turn, and that was how there was no longer any accident in that place anymore. But there was no day you wouldn't pass and see a bad accident occurring in that place. And in the end, it's all human error. If it is speed, it's human. One of the best way to know responsible drivers on the road is their speed
limits,
on the
true.
yes, how they watch. There are certain places that you would see the road safety going the extra mile, putting signs and saying, you know what, in this area you can't go above certain kilometers per hour. And lots of times you have witnessed being in a public transport, moving from one place to another. You would see a driver coming to this spot being extremely careful, lowering their speed and following the road signs and all of that, while you would be in another vehicle and we have careless drivers that all they care about is beating the time and getting elsewhere, knowing that if an accident should happen, you're probably never going to make it to that destination whatsoever. So it's all human error. So what is the thing that could be done about that spot? Could there be traffic signs that are absent there? Is there a need of a traffic warder, or what? It is an express road. Of course, we know there are no traffic warders on express roads and all of that. But are there road safety signs that are missing there? Is there a turn that is not supposed to be? Are there supposed to be lights warning people, dangers and all of that? And then secondly, when you are in a vehicle, are you mindful about your driver? Do you tell the driver not to speed? Sometimes even the passengers love the speed because they eagerly want to get to Abuja in 3 hours time rather than 5 hours, for example. So we are sometimes, if we tell ourselves the truth, very comfortable with the speed from the driver. We hardly find ourselves, in some cases, we speak out and tell the drivers, but most of the times people also are agreeing with the drivers and not minding the speed until something bad happens, and then it becomes tragic and we are faced with this kind of situation. So it's human error whatsoever. We can't blame it on any factor other than the human error on the road, be it by the road construction, the lack of road safety signs and all of that, or be it the driver and even the passengers not helping the situation, or whatsoever activity that happens on that spot that seems to be claiming a huge number of lives on a weekly basis.
True, true. And I think this is where we'll have to, add our voice to the voices of the residents here to call on the government to please do something
Yes.
concerning that sport. Just like you mentioned, so many things that can actually go wrong while we have that accident at that same spot. So we look forward to seeing the government doing something, because it's becoming too much to always
Yes,
see
it
those
is.
accidents on those roads. All right, let's take a look at another paper, which is this day newspaper. With estimated loss of 400,000 barrels per day, Kyari ramps up war against oil theft, with the writer NUPRC put Nigerians' July oil condensed output at 101.35 million barrels per day, the third highest in 2024. NNPC said it cut investment in Dangote refinery to focus on CNG, detail found on page 10. CBN resumes publication of key economic report. You can find that also on page 10. SEC grant assets holding approval to extend 351 billion naira right issue by 10 days. Intrigues as ruling party APC Rivers chapter now backs Fubara. You can read that in the paper. The big story for the paper: 14 months in office, Council of State and GF passed confident vote on Tinubu's leadership, with the writer appreciate Nigerians for resisting unconstitutional change of government. 7 ministers make presentation to the council. And then we are having Alake saying anyone not satisfied with our government should wait for next election to cast their vote. As well, Edu paints optimistic outlook, says economy is growing. And as well, we have nobody will be allowed to truncate our hard-earned democracy. This is coming from the NSA, detail found on page 10. And we have the picture story showing us some of those who were present during the Council of State meeting. And that's all on this day newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, EFCC donates 50 billion naira crime proceeds to NEL fund. NNPCL postpones Potaka refinery kickoff 6th time. 4.2 trillion naira foreign memorandum of understanding signed under Tinubu, a report. You can find details on page 3. Federal government unveils plans to bring back 12,400 JAPA doctors. 109 senators earn 1.4 billion naira annually. Details can be found on page 19. The big story on the Punch: federal government blocks 83 billion naira protest funds, arrests political collaborators. Government uncover $50 million crypto funds, blocks 4 digital wallets containing $38 million. Police to declare foreign agents wanted, traces 4 billion naira to Kano, Abuja, Katsina political bigwigs. TUC backs 5 million naira monthly pay for judges, 16 confirmed dead in Oyo multiple crashes. NJC to select Ariwola's successor Friday. More details can be found on page 29, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, National Health Insurance Act. 2 years after state on the roll as 90% Nigerians still pay out of pocket. Talking about the insurance, where we have the cost of health care up by over 200% in the last 1 year, with most Nigerians unable to pay out of their pocket. And then here we're having only over 18 million enrolled in the nationwide insurance scheme. Federal government account for over 3.5 million, private 2 million plus, vulnerable groups 2 million, state 8 million plus. And this is where we need the government to do something about health insurance, because a number of Nigerians are going through a lot, Richard. And I know we've discussed this off camera concerning the issue of health insurance, where not many people are even on that scheme, and even those on that scheme, the health insurance doesn't cover
A lot.
A lot of
Colossally
things
do, yeah.
eventually. And then when you're meant to pay, okay, 10% of it, and then eventually you get to see that you don't even, you pay more than the 10% eventually. And so somehow you just can't wrap your head around how is this whole 10% health insurance thing. And then yet we have more Nigerians not even on that scheme
Yeah.
totally. So I don't know what the government is doing about this, but I think this is where we'll have to call on the government to do something about the health insurance, how people can get enrolled. I mean, to some extent, to help people to be able to afford to get basic health care eventually in case of any eventuality, accident, illness. I mean, nobody prays to be ill, but just in case you fall sick, I think it will go a long way to help Nigerians to reduce the burden of paying for their health out of their pockets.
So like 18 million out of a population of over 200 million people is significantly small. It's a very small number, and there's so much that needs to be done. And it is about access. And this is where we talk about all the gaps that we have in our health sector. It is about access and availability of certain services, because just as you said, it's not even all about the people registering, but what is the quality of care you get with your health insurance if you eventually get registered and be insured health wise? Is the quality what it? And we've seen how it doesn't cover certain essentials. It's still at the basic, it's still at the very minimum of things that, well, we can say a good number can afford out of their pocket, but we can see that over the years, with over 200%, and this is just for health care. We're not even looking at pharmaceuticals, and just over the time, even when you go to the government hospitals, the pharmacies don't have more than 50% of the drugs you need. Yes, you have to go out and get it. If 50% is too much, we're looking about 70%. They are the ones in the hospital that would direct you to a private pharmacy outside the hospital. And most of the times, these pharmacies are owned by the doctors in the hospitals, the nurses, or even the pharmacists in the hospitals and all of that. So it's really a sad one. There's just so much work that needs to be done. But let's have more people being insured health-wise in this country. It doesn't matter the quality, but let the number go high. Let's have more private sectors coming. It's a good thing that we have 8 million plus at the state level. So it means in the state level, people are getting more insured, but then at the federal government level, it is low, which I think the federal government should be leading here. But then we see that the states are leading. Well, it's nearest to the people, know that, but then the federal government will keep saying have the better hand and resources to accommodate more people under its health insurance scheme. And then also when we come to the vulnerable group, 2 million is very small, looking at the number of people increasing when it comes to poverty in the country. When we see the number of reports left, right, center, this number is very small. I think that they should have the highest. They should surpass state, federal government at whatever level. They should have the highest when it comes to the number of people insured that are vulnerable, so that certain things they won't have to pay from their pocket. We're seeing outbreaks of different virus and diseases. These are things that when you have a health insurance, it should be able to cover up for you when you go to be whatever healthcare center that is owned by the government.
Well, let's see what the government will do eventually concerning all of these. Well, still on the Guardian newspaper, reps upbraid for failing to account for 5 billion naira calculators. Data found on page 5. Benue farmers panic over persistent drought. And I think this drought is not just in Benue. It seems as if the rain is taking a break in so many parts of the country where we saw that. I mean, certain parts are even taking to prayers and hoping that something will happen, because it's quite strange. Just this year, there are a number of people, more people are getting involved in farming. People who had no idea what farming is all about. You see that everybody has done his backyard, little gardens and all of that, but then rain seems to be farish. So we hope that the Lord will have mercy on us and send this rain back again. It's very, very important. Detail found on page 30. Still on the Guardian newspaper, 16 died, 7 injured in Ibadan multiple road crash. Chairman affirms 26 embarked to Rivers lawmakers as APC members. Coming from custom, Nigerians' food imports surged 95.28% to 920.54 billion naira in the first quarter of 2024. Manufacturing FMCG firms post 25% YTD losses as demand plummets. EFCC stake 50 billion naira in nail fund warns against abuse of fund. As well, we have OBJ, which is Obasanjo, IBB absent as Buhari, Jonathan ex-leaders pass vote of confidence in Tinubu. Do well to find more detail of that in the paper, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, fraudulent mobilization, NYSC cancelled 101 certificates issued to Unical graduates. Court extends order restricting Abuja protesters to National Stadium. 12 burned to death, 4 injured on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Monkeypox declared public health emergency in Africa. IOC's, LOC's meet aviation ministry officials, agent over helicopter landing levies. The big story on the paper, State of the Nation, Tinubu secures vote of confidence by ex-president, governors and council of state meeting. Catholic bishops chide president, urge reversal of petrol subsidy removal. We have an audit report, Senate knocks NNPCL, FIRS, police over refusal to respond to queries. You can start with the details on the front page. Bank directors call for windfall tax review and amid concerns over service impact. Details can be found on page 4. We have a picture story with a location, Andoni Rivers, Nigeria, where we can see this was captured by GP5 map camera. Ruins after Nigerian Navy ship Jubilee in conjunction with NNS, Pathfinder and Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited discovered and destroyed an illegal refining site in Ataba community at Doni, LGA, Rivers State. This is photo credit by the Nigerian Navy itself, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
Right, before we continue further with the paper review, let's take this time out to let you go through the stories, and when we come back, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zuma Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper at the Council of States meeting, where we saw some of the ex-leaders and person of Jonathan as well as Buhari were there present, passing their vote of confidence, as well as we're seeing other stories on the paper, what is happening concerning the health insurance, as well as the president having this policy, looking for a way to bring back our doctors that have left the country. So these are not the stories that we have been looking at, and we would love to hear your own views concerning any of this story. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, let's continue the paper review, looking at the Daily News Hub newspaper. I'm not on ICPC watch list. I will honor invitation today, says Jimmy Lawan. I'm not on ICPC watch list. I will honor invitation today, says Jimmy Lawan. Data found in the paper. And looking at the tragedy in Ibadan State, 16 killed, 70 injured as trailer crushes vehicles. Data found in the paper. Tinubu raises judicial officer salary by 300%. And then the hashtag #Embed Governance court extend order restraining protesters to Abuja Stadium. Obasanjo absent as Buhari Jonathan attend the first Council of State meeting convened by Tinubu. House sponsors of violent protests flee Nigeria before arrest coming from the IGP. CISLAC commend ICPC probe of alleged 90 billion naira Hajj subsidy fraud. I welcome ex-governor Ambude back to Alausa, says Sanwo-Olu. You can see the picture story showing that. As well, our condition to work with Fubara coming from the reinstated Rivers APC chairman. As well, we're seeing the IPI challenges Nigerian governor to probe attack on journalists during the hashtag #Embed Governance protest. Release report on protests claim 31 journalists attacked, 22 persons killed, several others injured by security forces, where we saw a pocket of that in FCT as well as other parts of the country. And also here we have alleged rape. Victim's mother not cooperating, says the police. You can find detail of that in the paper. And I would like to take a break here, Rachel, to talk a little about the issue of rape, where we see mothers not even cooperating. I know of a family where a daughter was being raped and then the mother refused totally to even report that. In fact, she tends to be covering this whole thing. And of course, we know that most time the people who suffer these are mostly the victims, because it's either the victims are scared to talk out because of maybe the person who raped them have said that when you say anything you will be killed, or we say that because of the way society makes this thing, there tends to be this pointing of finger on the victim, making the victim feel more guilty.
Yeah, there's a stigma.
Of course, there's this stigma attached to it, and I wonder why this mother here, this is looking at the human angle here, is refusing to cooperate with the police concerning it. Either we see there is a report and then they change the report or they take it back and all of that. We've had this thing happening. I was expecting that we are in a more advanced time where people should be outspoken to say things like this, but then most of these things go unattended and then nothing is being done, and it's really, really sad that women are meant to bear this whole guilt the rest of their life because they're being made to feel guilty for being raped, and it's really, really bad eventually.
This case have been on for weeks now concerning this victim being raped in the police station, and then now the police trying to carry out an investigation, and then now the issue is that the mother is not being cooperative and all of that. And there's so much. The most difficult part about rape cases is my word against your word, is there are no witnesses. There is nothing rather than I say, you say, this is what happened. And in the end, it's all about the truth taking its course, because if you're telling the truth, your story remains the truth regardless. You remain consistent in telling your story. And then there are proofs, certainly, when certain tests is being taken immediately and all of that. And that is why it's important for the system to change. It's a difficult thing, and we can't say it's easy, Sarah, because on another side we can say, well, it's easy, it's important for you to report immediately because there are certain tests that could take place, and then the results that will be out, and yes, will point to the culprit, and the truth will be out there and all of that. But at the same time, there's all of that fear. But in the end, there are certain patterns for people who are involved in rape cases, because there are specialties even when it comes to our court, when it comes to doctors and all of that. But that in the end of the day, the truth will triumph over all, because I know in the papers, we've been seeing certain fears concerning the police trying to cover up. That was a story, I think, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, concerning the police trying to cover up the story, saying the victim lied and all of that. And in most cases, because women are mostly the victims here, and we know we're in a male-dominated world, and it's almost like they can go free with certain things because now we have a mother trying to protect her child, a son who is a rapist, or a wife trying to protect her husband who is a rapist, and then the other family of the victim now trying to protect their image, trying to protect the child. Either way, we're not helping ourselves in this situation. But I hope that, as difficult as it might be, we try to grow past that level, that, you know what, if this person rapes one person and goes free, there are more victims in line, because we have serial rapists. And once they can go with one person, they keep going. And then if you don't speak out, you endanger other people. I hope that this will be the mindset moving forward, that if I keep quiet, it means I am putting 3 to 4 more victims at risk. People that, you know what, this officer could be out of the way. This man could be out of the way. That rapist can be out of the way. Your silence doesn't save your reputation. It enables the person. It gives room for more victims that could not be victims in the hand of that person take place. So I just hope that the mother understands that if this truly happened, and your daughter can give her story straight, correct, if this can be pushed further for this officer to be penalized, it have saved order, because you know what, more women will be put in the same position with this officer in the future, as long as he's been allowed to keep working as a police officer. And it means more victims will be seen in the future. So this is, for me, the mindset that we should go out there, as difficult as it might be, as stigmatizing, embarrassing. There's no good thing at the end of the day. You need a long time to heal and all of that, but just understand that your silence doesn't help the situation. It only makes it worse at the end of the day.
And in as much as you speak out to help others not to get raped, I mean, you also help the rapist to get help eventually.
Eventually, yes.
Eventually, this is a mental problem, and eventually the person needs to realize that he needs help.
Yeah.
So we just hope to see more on that. As well, we have other stories still on the paper. Court of Council passes vote of confidence in Tinubu. You can find more detail on the front page of the paper. And the last story here say, stop patronizing Okada riders, task force tell Lagos resident. I think this is not just in Lagos, but in most parts where Okadas have been banned, we still see people patronizing them, and they're enabling them to keep operating. So you can read detail of that in the paper, and that's all on Daily News Hub newspaper.
On First News newspaper, Tinubu approves policy to address health workforce migration. This is concerning Japan. The big story on the paper, Council of State backs Tinubu, Gowon of the Salami, Jonathan Buhari unite in vote of confidence. Obasanjo IBB absent as council labels. Hashtag end bad governance protest attempted regime change. Catholic bishops to Tinubu rescue Nigerians from crushing multidimensional poverty. Industry outrage, banks protest excessive 70% FX windfall tax. Senators earn 1.1 million naira monthly, RMAFC clarifies amid controversy. Pro-Fubara lawmakers confirm 5 commissioners designate. Sustained onslaught against crude oil theft, Kerry urges military. Accident on Ibadan Lagos expressway claims 16 lives, injured 17 rather. The last story on the paper, Tinubu approves judicial officers 300% pay rise, and that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, Tinubu signed bill increasing salaries of judicial officers by 300%. Tariff suspension on food import to cost Nigeria 188 billion naira coming from customs. And the big story on hashtag end bad governance, Gowon Abdul Salami, Jonathan Buhari decry protest regime change. With the rider pass vote of confidence in Tinubu at Council of State meeting, NSA reassures nobody will truncate hard-earned democracy. Wait till 2027 election, federal government tell President Tinubu opponents. More detail found in the paper. Afenifere decries call for military coup, seeks support for democracy. And Kyari urges military to sustain onslaught against crude oil. Theft, says NNPC Limited witnessing improved growth in crude production. Court extend order restraining Abuja protesters to the MKO Stadium. Found to take delivery of equipment to convert bird strike at airports. Detail found on page 7. And Dangote saying we have not fixed petrol price. Detail found on page 6. Again, stakeholders urge upward review of tariff for telco survivor with the rider sector in intensive care unit stage, says MTN CEO. Over 1,000 fiber cuts recorded monthly, Airtel CEO is saying. Quality of service tied to government policies coming from the ALTON, data found in the paper. Downside of the paper, Africa CDC declares Mpox public health emergency, and I hope that Nigeria health sector is actually ready, because we've seen that there is a new variant or improve of the monkeypox virus that is out there, and I think something needs to be done about that coming from our public health. So you can read that on page 6, and that's all on Daily Independent newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, customs to forgo 188 billion naira on import duties over tariff removal. A report from Adeni. You can start with the details on the front page. On transfer, Cole Palmer extends Chelsea's stay to 2033. That is a long one, but we'll have to wait and see. You can find details on page 20. Federal government unveils plan to address Japa syndrome in health sector. UK health sector will struggle if Nigerian health workers leave. This is a statement from page. You can find details on page 3. Tinubu signs bill to increase salaries of judicial officers by 300%. Nigeria rises to second among countries facing food insecurity globally. The big story on the paper, you are doing well, Council of State tells Tinubu. While we pass vote of confidence on Tinubu's administration, statement from the council, hails Tinubu for resisting unconstitutional move to change government during the #EndBadGovernance protest. Says any attempt to change government must be through ballot, not protest. Government seizes 83 billion naira in protest funding, naps political accomplices. Ogun Assembly strengthens local government autonomy with new bills. No fuel price yet, says Dangote Refinery. We have an entertainment story. Asake breaks record, becomes first African artist to top global Spotify debut chart. Details can be found on page 19. Picture story still showing the state council meeting. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Sweet Crook report, where we have NNPC export first cargo of Ope to crude to Spain. You can find more detail in the paper. Nigerian ports record 74 criminal safety incident in 6 months. Nigeria's first quarter oil earning grow by 97% to 2.06 trillion naira. Nigeria's gas output raises 3.5% to 157 BSCF in 1 month. Detail found inside the paper, and that's all in Sweet Crook report.
On Punch Sport Extra, UEFA Super Cup, where we have Real Madrid versus Atalanta. There he goes again. Lookman eyes another Atalanta heroic against Madrid. Details can be found on page 7. Orban admits difficult start at Lyon. Osimhen won't shine at Chelsea. Palmer extends with Chelsea till 2033. Lukaku agrees pay cut for Napoli move. City linked with £60 million Diaz swoop. We have Obaseki backs Edo Queens Champions League quest. Details can be found on page 3. Real Sociedad wants €20 million for Sadiq. United completes £60 million Delight El Mazari swap. You can find details on page 5. Atletico make Kante inquiry. Ramsdale linked with Ajax. Details can be found on page 4. Adesina sets target for next season. Boboyi dreams NPFL title with Sunshine. Tobago gets heroic welcome in Botswana, and that's all the news on Point Sport Extra.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Business Times newspaper. And on the Business Times newspaper, CBN revives key economic report to boost transparency growth, data found on page 15. And on inflation, FCCPC to engage market leaders and others. The big story coming from telecommunications, why tariff hike is an absolute necessity. Coming from the MTN CEO, says Nigerian telecom sector in an intensive care unit needs urgent rescue to prevent collapse. Reconsider windfall tax, BDAN asks the federal government describe levy as excessively burdensome ill-time, data found on page 2. National Clean Cooking Policy implementation will generate millions of jobs, coming from the minister. IOC LOC made Aviation Ministry officials agent over helicopter landing levies. And on tariff removal, custom to forgo 188 billion naira on import duties, detailed on page 2. Stakeholders advocate target tax incentive to support manufacturing sector, with the writers say incentives should be sector-wide and implemented in transparent, sustainable manner. Data found on page 2, and that's all on Business Times newspaper.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, Vinicius Jr. offered 13 times pay more than his salary. UEFA Super Cup, Murray on the brink of historic record, where we have Atalanta facing Real Madrid. Transport to resume fresh talks with Southampton on Onachu. Details can be found on page 6. The big story on the paper, UEFA Super Cup, Lookman in best shape to face Real Madrid, coming from Gasparini. Details can be found on page 6. I'm delighted to play with Chukwueze, a statement from Emerson. Man City agrees 5-year deal with Luis Diaz. We have Nwobi gets New Jersey number at Fulham. Real Sociedad to offload Omar Sadiq for 15 million euros. Palmer signs 2-year contract extension at Chelsea. Details can be found on page 2. We have Joshua's full attention on the boys' fight title. Details can be found at the back page. Tyson Fury set for surprise career change ahead Usyk rematch. And that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Right, let's round it up with the Business Day newspaper. Telco see investment shrink as return on capital turn negative, while analysts see inflation declining in July, detailed on page 31. Manufacturers losses drop to 233 billion naira as FX pressure cases. Manufacturers losses drop to 223 billion naira as FX pressure cases. Cost of Tinubu's reform chokes Nigerians. You can find that in the paper. And the big story, ownership battle rages as Nigeria's oldest bank. You can read what that entails. We still have the picture story where we have the president and the two former presidents during the council meeting in the presidential villa yesterday. And that's all on Business Day newspaper, as well as how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Celia.
Thank you to our viewers, our supporters, and to the entire production crew. We look forward again to the next tomorrow. Do have a wonderful day ahead.